Will you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nope, none. Nope. Have a seat.
It's not until January 31st.
All right, Commissioners, we'll start with approval of the regular session from last Wednesday, the 6th of December. We've had a copy distributed to us. I'm sure we all read it. Any changes? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last Wednesday.
I make a motion we approve the minutes.
Second?
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Gubel?
Yes. And then we need a motion to approve the consent agenda, which we received last Friday, as shown.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Gubel?
Yes. And moving over to page 8 is a non-consent agenda. The first item 12 is to pay our bills, Resolution 180-17, in the amount of $3,450,000, 513 cents, or I'm sorry, let me start over. $3,450,513.83 cents. Can we get a motion to pay our bills?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Gubel?
Yes. And item 13, another resolution to pay our bills. Resolution 181-17, in the amount of $241,722.72. Can we get a motion for Resolution 181-17?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Gubel?
Yes. Lisa Gatwick, good morning. Item 14.
Good morning. It is my recommendation, with the concurrence of Thomas J. Eihel, Interim County Administrator, to approve the request to advertise for bids for the purchase and delivery of 2 heavy-duty transit buses for the Clermont Transportation Connection pursuant to the specifications therefore, and to authorize the clerk of the board to place a legal notice in a paper of general circulation on 12/21/17, with bids to be received until 2 p.m. local time on Thursday, January 25th, 2018, in the office of the Board of County Commissioners, 101 East Main, Batavia, Ohio, where they will be publicly opened and read aloud shortly thereafter. This notice is also posted on the Contracting Authority's website at the following URL link, www.clermontcountyohio.gov.
Lisa, how often do we replace these large heavy-duty transit buses? Is it one a year typically, or in this case
They
two?
vary based on our fleet age. We have some Chevy buses that we have right now that are coming near the end of their useful life. And so these two buses will replace 2 of those Chevy buses. The heavy-duty buses have a useful life of 12 years.
Okay.
And we say heavy-duty bus. What style of bus? We're not talking about the big pushers, right?
We're talking about a 40-foot transit bus.
Yep,
So
okay.
these are the big metro-style buses. We have 2 of them in our fleet right now. And they are operated on our Route 4X Amelia Express that takes commuters from Clermont County into downtown Cincinnati.
And just for my edification, round numbers, what does one of these transit buses cost?
450,000 or so.
450?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's CNAC funding, 80/20, so.
80/20?
Yes, it is funded by grants.
Okay. So our obligation's only going to be the 20%?
That's correct.
Okay.
Lisa, while you're up there, do you want to discuss just a little bit about the idea that we may purchase vans so we can utilize non-CDL drivers?
Yes, Tom and I have been talking about possibly purchasing some vans. We have been doing a non-CDL training program for a while now, and it's been very successful. So we're thinking about purchasing some vans to use for those individuals so that they can drive a little bit while they're in training as well. Our current buses are big enough that they require a CDL, so they're not able to drive while they're in training unless they're with a trainer. Kind of like when you're a high school kid and you have your learner's permit, you have to be with a licensed trainer on board. So we're looking into possibly purchasing some smaller vans so that they can drive a little bit while they're in training and give them a combination of hands-on work and training at the same time. But that program's going very well.
And it would allow us to capture those Medicaid dollars that
Yes, it
we
would.
currently contract, which is the overall intent of that, is to try to capture those Medicaid dollars.
That would cause us, though, to pay the full price of fuel, I believe, because we get match on the fuel of the larger buses, CDL buses. Is that true?
Right, we do have some funding that's for biodiesel fuel. So if it's a gas vehicle, then yes, we would be paying the full price of the fuel.
Okay. Are we thinking about buying these smaller vans as diesel or as gasoline?
I've just started the process right now, so I'm going to go look at a couple of them over in Cincinnati at a dealer and see
Okay.
what they have. If they have diesel as an option, we'll certainly consider that and weigh the options and the difference of purchase price.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
And we get a motion then to approve the request to advertise for bids for the purchase of for delivery of 2 heavy-duty transit buses and to authorize putting a legal notice in the newspaper as referenced in item 14.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Gubel?
Yes. Thanks, Lisa. Morning, Adele.
Good morning. Adele Evans, Assistant Director of Community and Economic Development. Item number 15 is my recommendation with the concurrence of Andy Kupta, Director of our department, to execute a contract for services by and between the Board of County Commissioners and Industrial Communication Sound Incorporated out of Cincinnati relative to the procurement of audio-visual equipment for Clermont County, Ohio, in accordance with the scope of services identified in Exhibit A, attached thereto and made a part thereof, in an amount not to exceed $44,859, with said services to be completed within 42 days of company's receipt of signed contract and notice to proceed from our department, Office of Public Information Division, pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein, and contingent upon the receipt of an Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation certificate required therefore. So this is for the purchase of a new video system for the session room. It would include all new HD cameras. They would be pan tilt zoom cameras. There would be a backup recording system, monitors on the DS for live viewing of what's being recorded, which would replace the big TV in the back. It also includes a pack of assisted hearing devices, so if someone in the audience needs some assistance, they have some disability with hearing, they can request a pack to be able to hear session. It also would allow Skyping of video from the session room, as well as other live streaming and internal streaming. And then we would be also replacing the projector. So right now when we have presentations, David will insert the PDF file into the video because it's not very visually appealing. And then we would also add additional audience mics because right now we have a difficult time of picking up folks in the audience if they don't come up to the podium.
I guess we're going down this route simply because we had problems with our current system. Simply,
That is correct.
sometimes it works and sometimes it didn't. And
We've had a couple of issues where when we're uploading to YouTube, the system freezes and then the video gets lost.
yeah, and this also will allow us to maintain, they'll be doing the backup for us as well and keeping it off-site and keeping it basically in the cloud.
It'll be in a separate backup system as part of, in this.
Backup will be here. It won't go to a cloud service.
It won't be outside.
I mean,
Okay,
that is an option, but that's a separate service if you want to go that way.
Okay.
It will be basically 2 recording devices
correct.
on site.
Okay,
So as we're uploading one file, the other file's not being dealt with, so it's just sitting on.
It moves us from standard definition cameras that are fixed to pan, tilt, zoom.
We have pan,
High
tilt, zoom
definition.
cameras now.
Okay,
That they're not high definition.
moves us to high definition.
That is correct. We did request quotes from 3 companies. 2 companies came and actually visited the session room. One company wanted to charge us to come visit the session room, and we decided that the 2 companies that were willing to come for no cost, they were good companies, and we went ahead and got quotes from both of those, so.
actually, as I recall, this was several months ago, but the company we ended up going with provided the best value, or had the best options for the least cost. Was that it?
That is correct.
Which was interesting.
The other quote was a proprietary system, so if something went not good, then they would have to come and fix it, and we're still under warranty with the company that we're recommending, but it's not a
A
proprietary
lot of,
system,
a
so.
lot of their equipment is off the shelf, yeah. Good. When would this be installed?
So they have 42 days from the notice to proceed, and once they receive a signed contract, so by February.
February.
Or
Okay,
February.
good. Can we get a motion then to execute a contract for services between the Board of County Commissioners in Clermont County and Industrial Communication and Sound, Inc., along with the contingencies as referenced in item 15?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes. Thanks, Adele. I don't see anybody from the engineer's office, so you want to try?
Item 16 is a recommendation of Pat Monger, the county engineer, to execute record plat number 629-3021 for the Lexington Run subdivision in Batavia Township, and to execute the performance and maintenance bonds as listed in the table.
Okay, can we get a motion then to execute the record plat 629-301 and to execute the performance and maintenance bond as referenced in item 16?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes. Item 17?
17 is a recommendation of Pat Monger, the county engineer, to adopt resolution number 182-17, resolving to request the state of Ohio to reduce the speed limit on Eichholz Road located in Union Township as outlined in the table below.
Tom, did this come up as a result of the meeting we had? I know we had a couple
Yes.
of businesses that were here, and they said that okay, good. I'm glad we're able to resolve that with them.
And it's interesting, the county engineer can't do that on his own. He has to have a mother may I from the ODOT. but-
always.
I know, but.
Can we get a motion then to adopt,
Decision locally.
can we get a motion to adopt resolution number 182-17 on item 17?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes. Item 18?
Item 18 is a recommendation to designate Commissioner Humphrey to represent Clermont County on the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments Executive Committee for calendar year 2018, and to authorize reimbursement of expenses not to exceed $50 per meeting.
We get a motion to designate Commissioner Humphrey for our OKI representative and further resolve authorization to reimburse expenses up to $50 as referenced in item 18.
So moved.
Second. Oh, sorry.
I'll second the
I'll
motion.
abstain.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Abstain.
And item 19,
Item 19 is a recommendation to designate Commissioner Painter to serve as the alternate for Commissioner Humphrey on the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments Executive Committee for calendar year 2018, and to authorize reimbursement of expenses not to exceed $50 per meeting.
Get a motion then to designate Commissioner Painter to serve as the alternate on OKI and to authorize reimbursement of expenses up to $50 per meeting as referenced in item 19.
So moved.
And I'll second that motion.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Abstain.
And item 20.
Item 20 is a recommendation to designate Dennis Brown, Clermont County General Health District, Matt Ernst, Assistant Vice President of Community Savings Bank, and Commissioner Painter to serve on the Septic System Rehabilitation Financing Committee during calendar year 2018.
Okay, we get a motion to designate Dennis Brown, Matt Ernst, and Commissioner Painter to serve on the Septic System Rehabilitation Finance Committee as referenced in item 20.
So moved.
And I'll second the motion.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Abstain.
Item 21.
Item 21 is a recommendation to designate Commissioner Humphrey, Andy Kukta, and Adele Evans to serve on the Tax Incentive Review Council during calendar year 2018.
We get a motion to designate Commissioner Humphrey, Andy Kuchta, and Adele Evans to serve on the Tax Incentive Review Council as referenced in item 21.
So moved.
And I'll second the motion.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Abstain.
And item 21, or 22, we got Bob Sanders here to handle that. Morning, Bob.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Bob Sander, Human Resources. Item 22 is a recommendation with the concurrence of Tom Igalo, Interim County Administrator, to execute an agreement by and between the Board of County Commissioners and Edward S. Dorsey in Wood and Lamping, Vine Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, for the provision of consulting services relative to labor management matters on an as-needed basis for the period January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2018, at the rate of $200 per hour for labor activities and $220 an hour for federal and state proceedings, for a total amount not to exceed $75,000, inclusive of all costs and expenses, therefore during calendar year 2018, pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions specified therein, and contingent upon the adoption of the annual appropriations for calendar year 2018 and the issuance and receipt of the requisite purchase orders therefore. This is an increase of $20,000 over the year before because we have three major organizations that will require his services: Job and Family Services, Water Resources Department, and the Sheriff's Office. So they all come in at the same time in 2018.
We've used Ned many years, right? He's done a great job for us. So we get a motion then to execute an agreement between the county and Edward S. Dorsey and Wood and Lamping for the period 2018 calendar year with the contingencies as referenced in item 22.
So moved.
Second, just a question on this. This is a not to exceed 75,000. We use them on an as-needed basis. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Suki, what did we spend on this last year? Do we have a?
Last year would have been less. We had it down at 55,000, and we probably didn't even spend all that. And it's like Bob said, because we're going into negotiations, it requires more services. He usually sits in on negotiation meetings.
Okay.
So every 3 years on those contracts, this one bumps up.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Item 23.
Okay.
Judy, you want to handle
Yeah,
this as a
sure.
clerk?
Right. The board received the review of the file for the petition for annexation of 4.3989 acres of land owned by J. Raymond and Mary Jo Hawley and St. Louis Catholic Church to the Village of Owensville in Clermont County, Ohio. The public hearing was held November 15th. Within 30 days thereof, Board of County Commissioners needs to make a determination to either grant or deny the annexation. The documents were distributed to you individually, and they are before you to either grant or deny the annexation.
Okay. I guess we could entertain a motion for one or the other, either to deny or to resolve to grant the petition. And I'll be willing to hear either one. If you'd like to have a motion.
I move that we grant the annexation as been discussed in previous public meetings, and now it's come to conclusion before the board.
Do we have a second?
You need a second.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion?
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Abstain.
Okay, item,
My son used to work for
You did?
Owensville. He no longer works for Owensville, but it has the appearance of impropriety, so I'd prefer to abstain.
item 24.
Item 24 is an amendment to our policy, and it's regarding opening invocations before the Board of County Commissioners meetings. And this increases the number of times that any one speaker can offer the prayer. It increases it from 5 to 10. Judy, do you want to have any discussion about that?
I've kind of discussed with all of you that although we send out, and in this year, almost 200 letters to churches throughout Clermont County, our response to that is very minimal, and with only having the opportunity of 5 times for any one pastor to come before the board to offer prayer, and not consecutively, but separate and apart from that. And we have about, and are required to have 50 regular sessions at least. And we normally ask for Wednesdays for those offertories. With the help of some pastors, I was able to meet that requirement this year, and so I have spoken independently, probably to all of you, as well as to the administration, that I'd like to the board to consider amending it from 5 times to not more than 10 times during and effective immediately, as we have sent out the letters as of December 1st. I am very pleased that at least 3 responses have come from churches that have not responded in the past. So perhaps this was fortuitous.
We'll still have a stipulation it can't be,
It's everything is exactly the same.
stipulation it can't be twice in a row.
Cannot be successive,
Yep.
correct?
Yeah, Judy, something you could do is, instead of having people come here for a 30-second prayer, we could do dial a prayer, or they could come in online on the speakers.
It's fine that they come, and we seem to be able to get them here, so.
Really?
Well, I mean, yeah, just,
It'd be a way.
I think one of the things you're seeing is that you're having a tough time people coming in, because they come in, they wait, and then they do 30 seconds and they leave, and I think maybe it's becoming tough to get people to come here.
Actually, they've been very gracious and are more than happy to respond.
Sure.
Of all the ones that I've interacted with over the years. So it used to be not greater than 3, and we increased it to 5, thinking we would get a greater response, and we did not. So individuals have said they'd be happy to come anytime, and I said, unfortunately, due to the policy, you're limited. So that was my inquiry.
So we have a handful that definitely have no problem getting here, but it's becoming a smaller group of people that.
The response that we've had has not been as we thought that it would be, where we would have 50 responses out of 200, which would be 25% of the responses. Yes.
Okay.
And there's nothing like having an individual here to indicate,
There's
you
no
know.
doubt, yeah.
And not all of them have the wherewithal to do quote-unquote Skyping or video prayer or,
Okay. Well, I know with our new monitoring system and all the rest, we'll have more cameras and monitors and all the rest. I was just kind of throwing that out there.
oh, sure. But if they don't have it, then we're limited, other than through a telecommunication.
Sure. Okay. Item 24 then, can I entertain a motion then which increases the number of times in any calendar year that any one invocation speaker can present from currently at 5 times per year up to 10 times per year as referenced in item 24.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes. And Judy, I wasn't saying that
I know, I'm sorry.
crass or
I know
it
that
wasn't
you
a
were.
joke. I was just trying to bring us into, we're becoming
I'm
more and more
trying-
modern.
I'm
you
trying
know?
to find my humor this morning. I'm working on it.
It wasn't supposed to be humorous. I thought I was trying to be practical, put it that way. But item 24, or 25, we've got Dan Otke. You going to present or read, or is Tom going to handle that? I know you,
So item 25 is a recommendation of Dan Ockey, Superintendent of the Clermont County Board of Developmental Disabilities, to adopt resolution number 184-17, resolving to request the county auditor to certify to the Board of County Commissioners the total current tax valuation of the county and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by renewal tax levy in the amount of 3/4 mil for each $1 of valuation, which amounts to 7.5 cents per $100 valuation, for the operation of county developmental disabilities programs and for the acquisition, construction, renovation, financing, maintenance, and operation of mental retardation and developmental disabilities facilities in and as it relates to the submission of the question of the tax to the electorate of Clermont County at the primary election to be held on Tuesday, May 8th, 2018. And as you notice, I left out the bold section, which is whether or not this would be a continuing levy or a 5-year levy. And that is something that we have not decided, or the board has not decided as of yet. So Dan is here. Dan, do you have anything to comment on or add, or he's here to answer any questions you might have?
Let me just clarify for a second, since you read the issue, which is issue 25. Am I understanding that the board is being asked to pick one of those, either to approve this levy renewal through calendar year 23 and/or approve it for a continuing?
Correct.
Okay,
Or choose not
Just-
to approve it at all.
right.
We have 3 choices.
Understood.
At the presentation, we had one commissioner that was for continuous. We had one commissioner. Yes, it was you, Captain.
Yes.
And one commissioner who wanted it to be a renewal, and we had one commissioner that was silent. So we're to the time frame in which to try to, although we have time to get this adopted, the statute allows 10 days for the auditor to respond. We're just trying to be proactive and get this accomplished during this calendar year, as when we begin the 2018 season, that we will have this accomplished, if that is your choice, to either grant renewal or grant continuous or not grant at all. But this will be the last year for the collection of that .75 levy. Is that correct?
Yes, 2018.
well, I'll entertain a motion for any one of those 3 options, if someone would
Well, I
like
think we
to
need
make one.
Maybe we can discuss first, or should we just have a motion to decide if it fails or passes?
I think we have to have a motion before we can have the discussion.
Okay.
So,
I'll make a motion that it be a continuous levy, only because we've passed the levy that's 5-year levy several times in a row. I'm not sure how many times we've done that.
Since 2000, it was first since 2003, so that would have been 2008, 13, and this would be the
Okay, so we've done it twice. We've done it 3 times. We've done 2 renewals and the original. I think that the need continues to exist and will continue to exist, and that the cost of running the campaign and getting all the people out there and Working on this is something that could be saved if it were a continuous levy. So I make a motion that it be a continuous levy.
And Judy, just for clarification, Commissioner Humphrey has made a motion for a continuous levy that's on the floor. And am I understanding that if there is no second, then that motion lays dead on the floor and then is open for a additional motion?
That's correct.
But that a counter motion cannot be made until such time that it's either been moved, second, or voted on. Correct?
I believe that is correct.
Okay.
Do we have a second? I don't think we have a second for that motion. So is there another motion?
I move that that in item number 25, as far as the Clermont County Resolution 184, declaring it necessary for a renewal of tax in the excess of 10 mil limitation for Clermont County Developmental Services, that it be placed on the 2018 tax duplicate, and that it not be a renewable levy and only be good through year 2023. Is that correct?
We will renew the levy, but it will only be for a period of 5 years.
Be
Correct.
continuous.
Okay.
Also, I heard the 10 mil, what'd you say? It was 0.75 mil. right?
0.75, yes.
Okay,
Within the 10 mil limitation.
Yes.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye. And I do that because I believe the levy is important.
Okay. Item 26, Yvonne, good morning.
Yvonne Smith, Benefit Plan Coordinator for Clermont County. My recommendation is with concurrence of Thomas J. Eigel, Interim County Administrator, to authorize David Ubel, President of the Board of County Commissioners, to execute the participation agreement and business associate agreement by and between Clermont County and Optum RX of Schaumburg, Illinois, and to approve compensation for such services as defined in Exhibit A, compensation attached thereto and made a part thereof, for the provision of administrative services relative to the prescription drug plan for all eligible Clermont County employees and dependents, effective for the period of 1/1 of 2018 through 12/31 of 2020, pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein, and contingent upon the adoption of the annual appropriations for calendar year 2018 and the issuance of a purchase order therefore.
Okay. We get a motion then to execute the participation agreement and business associate agreement between Clermont County and Optum RX, and to approve compensation as defined in Exhibit A, along with the contingencies as referenced in item 26.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Yvonne. 27, our Assistant County Administrator. Morning, Ms. Sheets.
That was slipped in quick.
We don't want her to forget that. I mean, that's an important role she's serving. Nice Christmas coat, by the way.
Thank you. Ho, ho.
Oh, ho.
All right.
It's a week away.
Before we start item 27, which is adopting next year's annual appropriations, so we are authorized to expend county monies. I did want to bring up a couple of items that were kind of left open last week and see if we want to make any changes to the appropriation. Right now, what is in the appropriation is, as it was presented last week, a bottom line of $252,014,670.22 across all 117 funds. The first item that was brought up was OSU extension request. OSU came to us with a request for an additional educator, a 4-H educator, that would have increased what we had previously been funding them from $201,000 up to about $250,000. We have left in this recommendation the current level of funding at the $201,000.
If we gave them a 2.35%, similar to what we give what we're going to provide to our county employees, it would bring it up to about $206,000. Still not what they requested, but I'm going to leave that up to you guys to decide if you want to increase what we're giving to OSU. We have held them at $201,000 since 2012, so they have been held flat. The other item that was brought up was the fleet manager position, and I did clarify that it is not in this appropriation request. A fleet manager would probably, depending on fringes selected, would probably cost us about $76,000. The fleet fund does not have revenues to be able to fund this, so if we did want to appropriate monies to fund a fleet manager, we would have to also appropriate another transfer from general fund to the fleet fund to be able to cover that expenses.
Okay, so currently, that is not included,
That
nor
is
is the more than 201,000
That's
for
right.
OSU.
No
is
increase
where
in
we're at.
OSU from what they have been held at since 2012.
Okay, so if we,
There were a couple other challenges that came up after that we were made aware of, and we will probably have to resolve those with some kind of budget adjustments or hopefully transfers in the first case. We found out from the prosecutor that the law library is no longer providing any Westlaw licenses. They had previously provided 4 per office. So that, in addition to what the prosecutor needs, we're looking for another $13,000 there. But we may be able to find that in actual healthcare selections. We've had some people move from the, I'll call it the old PPO plan, to the high deductible plan. I guess Yvonne left. So that should save us some contributions on the county side, and if that's in general fund, we'll be able to move some there. The bigger challenge that came to us, and we're just going to do a wait and see what happens, is the jail overtime issue. Their overtime is not dropping even with the reduction in the Brown County contract. It covered most of the increase this year, but it's not been dropping, and some of that's due to vacancies, so we'll end up moving like we typically do when overtime's due to vacancies. We move it out of, regular, if it's not a paid vacancy.
Population's been down for several weeks, too.
And we're going to have to.
That's just recent.
Yeah, we're going to have some meetings with the jail and talk about it. I did share with the sheriff the fact that there isn't funds right now to add staffing. They were talking about maybe adding 4 or 8 additional corrections officers, which would be $230 to $500 and roughly $260 to $520,000. To do that we would almost have to just reduce what the overall increase is to people's, to that 2.35% we added to salaries across the board. If we did 4, we're talking about dropping about 0.25% off of that. So it would take it down below 2%.
And just going back to your conversation, that disparity between the Brown County and what we actually collected was somewhere around about $24,000.
Right. We're probably going to be up about $250,000 on overtime, but we collected about $220 from Brown County.
Okay.
So it covered most of it.
We
So the rest of
continue
it,
on with Brown County for a few more months.
we are, but it's down. They're paying per inmate, and they're down to 4 inmates.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not much coming in right now. But yeah, we will continue with them.
So the cost is a disincentive to them, so that's why we don't have
Yeah.
higher inmate
And,
population.
and I guess they got their doors fixed.
Yep.
So they can absorb them back over there. So those were the issues I wanted to bring up. If you wanted us to change anything, we can do that and hold this until next week. We can make changes. Otherwise, if you're okay with the way it is, we can go ahead and I can go through the resolution.
Judy, on the law library, the Westlaw, I was under the impression last time you presented that they were going to be actually charging a subscription fee. In the past, they kind of gave it away, but they were going to create some revenue through that. Is that the
Right,
plan?
and they started that this year, Mary, or did they start it this year? Okay, so they started charging the departments that have Westlaw licenses for anything over 4 licenses. If they wanted more than 4, they're paying for it. So they brought in revenues into the Law Library Fund. The Law Library Fund is generally supported by fines of the court, okay? And they have had fiscal
issues for quite a few number of years. They are down a person right now, and we'll go through a supplemental to modify their current budget, but they had a person retire this year, and hopefully the choice is not to fill that position because the funds aren't there to be able to support 3 law librarians. But their other source is to push these costs back to us, general fund, and that's what they're doing right now with not even providing 4 licenses for Westlaw. So, and the issue with the licenses is they're not to be shared. They're named licenses, so every one of them cost money.
Well, they're pushing it back, I'm not following you, but they're pushing it back to us, but we're not increasing their annual budget, are we?
We aren't, because they live on their own revenues.
Correct.
And we can't increase it because there's no additional revenues coming into it. We could supplement it, and kind of that's how we're doing this, by pushing their costs, what they have historically paid, over to general fund. You know, we're paying what our
Obligation.
people need, as opposed to having it provided through their funds.
So we're actually paying for those individual licenses if our people actually.
We're reimbursing law library for them. They're getting them under
Okay.
their agreement with
Okay.
Westlaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're subsidizing the law library to the tune of how much?
Well, this, just for the prosecutor, would be about just over $13,000, but it's not, it's gonna affect public defender also, and anybody else, courts? The courts, because the judges and people will, some of those use Westlaw for their research.
So 13,000 above and beyond what they're
Above what
bringing
we
in
have
from their
currently
fines.
appropriated, yeah. The prosecutor paid for this year's additional Westlaw licenses out of his FOJ funds, and he just doesn't have enough in there to be able to do all of this. And he has about 11 licenses
At least.
across his attorneys.
So currently, we have 13,000
But I
included
believe-
in the
yeah,
budget.
I believe we're gonna be able to do that after we analyze all the healthcare selections. We may be able to cover that, because it's not that big of an increase to the appropriation. So you'll see some transfers probably early next year when we can analyze who's elected what healthcare enrollments for this year.
Mhm.
The fleet manager, no, I would want to increase the appropriation to be able to do that. I can't do that by shuffling what we've already provided.
You say you want to increase it, however, it's not included in the current budget, you said.
No, so if you
But
want
she
to, I
can
would
come
have to
back
change the
next week
budget amount.
if we decide it should be in there, she can come back next
Exactly.
week and we can do it then.
If you decide it should be in there, at this point, it would have to be, I would have to look at it as a supplemental or a subsidy from general fund to fleet. Okay, and keep in mind, fleet supports multiple different departments or funds. Until such time that we could determine what the final result of fleet's gonna be as far as, are we gonna increase their fees? Are we going to get additional revenues based on additional services that are being performed that aren't being performed now? You know, more applied hours from the 3 fleet.
From the actual staff.
Yeah, yep. And until I start seeing that materialize, I don't know how to estimate that yet.
Okay.
So we have 3 decisions about if we want to change the appropriation.
These were the things.
One of the
yeah.
things are OSU extension, adding the fleet manager, and law library.
Law library was just I wanted to bring it up because it
Westlaw.
came up to us with Westlaw. I don't think we need to change it right now for that.
Okay, so there's just 2.
It's just the 2.
Or the jail overtime.
And jail overtime, it's too early yet. I want to see how that's going to kind of work.
If we,
itself out.
if we include a placeholder for the fleet manager, all of those things come together before we're actually going to know what the real cost is. The fleet manager cost for the placeholder, how this works out with actually leasing automobiles, and then the efficiency of the staff hopefully being increased by having proper management and supervision to where they can actually sell their services at a more efficient rate, I should say.
At a more efficient rate or potentially at a higher rate.
Right.
We may have to increase to cover, because you're talking, you have 3 applied people, and if you hire a fleet manager, you have 1 unapplied. So it's a high level of overhead in an operation, which is why we hadn't redone it for a while, but the only way to absorb that higher level of overhead is under fleet is to increase the fleet's rate.
The goals being on there is to have good accountability of what we have as far as assigned to fleet.
Yeah.
And then the second thing would be to increase the safety of the current fleet that we're using.
Make sure everything's getting done on a proper PM schedule,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
Get the guys applied, throughout the day, have the workload ready, so they're not sitting around waiting for cars to show up, because that's some of the stuff that's kind of being missed right now.
Mhm.
And see if that can materialize into enough revenue stream that would support it, or do we have to do an increase in the rates?
Okay.
Coming back to OSU Extension, the idea is to add an educator for,
That's what the request was.
About 49,000.
For another educator would be
there's
another.
already an educator for 4-H?
Yes, this would be a second 4-H
Mhm.
educator.
Okay.
And I think earlier this year, we discussed this and we said no.
Right, which is why we
Interim.
didn't put it in the recommendation.
Yeah, the only question I have is about the fleet manager position. And I kind of would like it to be in there, so if we could wait till next week and put that fleet manager position in there.
What I'll do
That would be
is,
good.
for the time being, until we know for sure, and I know Fleet doesn't have any funds, I will put in this appropriation in our non-operating general fund, meaning we're not gonna make a commitment to continue to fund it out of general fund. I'll put the transfer to Fleet, and then I'll increase the Fleet revenue as well as the Fleet expense for a manager.
I'd like to hear how the other commissioners feel about that.
But we could still get a motion to that effect to make those changes versus waiting until next week.
I don't have the final dollars, but
Well, okay.
yeah, I mean, I said 76, I'll have to, it'll change general fund and it'll change the Fleet fund.
Just my opinion on that is I think a fleet manager's warranted. We need to get, that stuff under our control and, make sure that we're utilizing those assets as effectively as we can. Since you'd mentioned the OSU educator, the last conversation that we had last year was about, we wanted them to focus on 4-H. That was something that we wanted them to do. The other thing was that they had focused, they had put an additional focus, or an additional member had come on that was focusing on economic development. And we didn't think that economic development was a path that we really supported, since we have our own economic development area. They're asking to add a 4-H person to put that emphasis on there. I'm not sure that it's warranted at $249,000, but I would support some increase that's in between.
Educator for us is in the $60,000 range, I thought.
40,
40,
Almost
40,
50.
50, okay.
Right.
Less than 60.
lessons.
Now, in the past,
So it's not 200, it's,
No, the 200's what
No.
we've been given them, what we have been giving them,
201's when
so we'll take it.
is what we've been giving them.
okay.
201. This would increase, their request is for 249, 250.
so we split the cost in the past, the 201 with OSU, so in effect, their budget is like 402, is that right?
They have a budget at the state level also that covers some of their expenses for the educators.
I thought it was-
Yes.
Yeah, we pay part of the educator, they pay part of the educator for all the educators.
So this increase,
We pay for they pay for the first educator, and then we pay for any additional.
so we're 100,
Fringes On them,
And this OSU does the fringes on the
Yes.
educator.
so almost 100% of the salary of the second educator is coming from the county, where there's not a lot of
Second and
cost
third.
share.
Second and third.
and
they're
then all the
requesting
fringes are
4,000.
coming from the state on them.
Okay.
So I'd like to see the fleet manager get in, and I'm okay with leaving everything else as it is in the budget. Personally, let's just add one.
So leaving OSU where it is without the second educator and subsidizing the law library for Westlaw subscription. Right?
Which
No,
does,
we
which
weren't
does,
We weren't
that
gonna
doesn't
change
have
it
to be
for the
changed.
Westlaw. I'll do that next year in
Okay.
some of the appropriation changes.
Well, then do you,
And I'm willing to increase the appropriation for OSU extension, but not by the full request. You had mentioned to me that the 2.35% if we include them on that, would take them to 206.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes.
I'd recommend it 225, but that's my opinion.
So do we want to wait till next week
We
and
could do
give
it
us the
contingent
revised
upon.
number? We can do that contingent
We
upon?
could adopt it today contingent upon the changes if
Okay.
we have an agreement on the changes.
All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion.
Correct, G?
I guess.
Do we want to handle those?
It would be better to come back.
It'd be better to have a real number.
Yeah,
that we're
let's
approving.
that
do
way
that.
too.
We'll just come back.
I'm
Does
working.
that affect our year-end processing at all, Mary, do you think?
We've had phone calls because we're running a few weeks behind anyway,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
When they go into executive session,
So,
fix it.
let me clarify and make sure we have
Yeah, I want,
consensus.
that'd be okay
Or
too.
Yeah,
or at least
right.
majority. OSU extension, I heard increase at 25,000, nothing. Ed,
I'm okay with 25,000.
okay.
I do want the emphasis to be on 4-H, if that
Said Mary.
improves it.
Make a comment on that.
Sure.
Since we have to pay for 100% of the additional educator, 25,000
Won't do anything.
They can't get a
they can't do
halftime.
it with that amount of money.
Yeah.
Okay. So it would have to be
That
the,
would not get 'em.
so it would have to be the full
Unless they
educator.
All or
cut their
none.
other
Unless they cut
expenses.
something else,
Unless they
and
cut their other expenses in their
Mhm.
staffing or,
Right, we
or
have some, they have
items.
support staff in there, clerical and so forth, very minimal on office operations. I'm not sure that, I'd have to pull out their individual.
If we wait, is that something that a conversation can can be had with them?
Right, I can pull out their budget and see what exactly 25 would do and if
Okay.
that could.
You know, I forget, we had this discussion at length earlier in the year for the second person that wasn't an educator, but it was economic development director or person. In terms of the trend lines of 4-H participation, is it up, down? I mean, if it's down 15%, is that going to affect your decision? Because if the 4-H is down and here we are adding another second educator,
That would.
you kind of wonder, I'd like to get a little more information on where 4-H is headed, and maybe we can go back to Kelly at OSU and ask, for the extension office, and ask her that information, or ask for that question.
I think that's sound reason.
Yeah.
It's good to take a look at.
We could just deal with OSU as a supplemental next year, as a change after we adopt. If you-
Okay.
if you're-
Let's-
So while we're
let's
in
do that,
executive
'cause-
session, could you do the fleet manager position and give us a number
Yeah,
that we can approve when we come out of executive session? Okay,
absolutely.
and then we'll do the other out of supplemental.
Okay, so we'll hold OSU, we'll get fleet, and we'll bring that back and get it,
Be ready.
move it to the bottom.
Yes.
Okay.
He's just gonna stay where he is for right now.
So we're going to delay and postpone
Table
until next week.
27
Table
for a
to,
moment.
to next week.
No.
Nope.
No, we're
No,
gonna do it
till later
after
today.
executive session.
Oh,
They're
gonna go-
okay.
They're gonna go fix
back
it right now.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Fleet manager.
So you're going to give us a new number. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so
I think that was good.
item 27 will be tabled till later, and then we'll move on to 28.
28 is actually, let's jump back to this year. Supplementals for this year, most of these are to finish out the year. In general fund stormwater, another $3,206. That's because the proceeds that were collected from the stormwater fees were higher than we expected. So in order to move all those per our MOU to soil and water, we need to appropriate another $300.
But hasn't stormwater kind of stopped now that it's frozen?
Oh, stop it. Adult detention kitchen needs another $20,000 based on the special diets in the inmate population. I probably said this a couple times earlier this year. It just keeps happening. The special diets are more expensive than our less than $1 a meal for the other ones. I'm not going to go into a lot of these because they're just usually down in the appropriation because the revenues are being adjusted by the Budget Commission down to an actual revenue level of a lot of funds. We cannot have an appropriation in excess of that, so we'll reduce the appropriation. And a lot of these are funds where money comes in and that same money goes out someplace. But I will hit on Law Library Resources Fund. the regular salaries and the fringes are both having to be increased, and that's because when we just finalized this a couple weeks ago, the intent was that the 2 remaining law librarians would get increases starting in January, which is what we were told, and they actually made them effective November 1st, the day that, or December 1st, I'm sorry, the day that Carol retired. Public assistance, all reductions based on revenues, and the only other increase on here is sheriff, police revolving fund, our contract, deputies, $15,000 increase there. Just the year-end adjustment for actual payrolls.
Holiday.
Okay. And the rest are as listed on in the minutes. Agenda.
Okay.
Draft agenda.
That one. This is about the 15th. Change of thing.
Any other questions while we have our Office of Management and Budget Director at the podium? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the supplemental appropriations on item 28.
So moved.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes. Thanks, Suki. All right, item C, need for executive session pursuant to section 121.22 G1 and G3 of the Ohio Revised Code to first consider the compensation of a public employee, and secondly, to confer with the prosecuting attorney regarding pending or imminent litigation respectively. Can we get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes, we'll be back. All right, we are back from executive session. No decisions were made or votes taken. And we have a couple of things. First, why don't we have an add-on?
Yes.
Tom, would you like to handle
we
that
have
one?
we have a revisitation.
No, we have an add-on first.
We have an add-on.
First, before you go back to number 20,
It probably doesn't matter at this point, but
whatever.
So we have an add-on for the board's consideration. It's a recommendation from Ernie Ramos, the Assistant Prosecuting Attorney, to authorize the Clermont County Prosecutor's Office lead counsel for the county defendants in the litigation identified as Christopher Hicks versus Clermont County Board of Commissioners to take all procedural actions in that litigation on behalf of the county defendants that he or she thinks appropriate, leaving all substantive decisions to the Board of County Commissioners. That's it.
okay.
Could you repeat that? I didn't quite get it.
The chair part of the motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes. And then we're going to revisit a item that was tabled earlier on. Item,
it's just held.
it was held,
Yes, just
So
held,
Rod-
not tabled.
terminology.
Yes.
Make sure that podium doesn't go up or down.
So item 27, which is Resolution 185-17, it was the annual appropriations. And Suki, you were going to get a little more information and give us an exact number, right?
I have an exact number. What we have changed since last week's presentation and the one we started today with is we included a fleet manager in the fleet fund, along with $75,000 transfer from general fund to be able to support that added expense. We also took out of the fleet fund the 20% part-time fleet manager and put that back into facilities. So it does increase general fund a little bit. So our bottom line general fund operating total was just below 56.1 million. Last week it was 56.094, 96, 56.096, and now it's up to 56.117. Our bottom line appropriation is now $252,186,000. And fleet has increased from $1,440,000 to about $1,520,000. And those exact numbers are all in the exhibits that I will
present to the clerk, which is both the appropriation summary for Resolution 18517 and the appropriation detail with the legal level of control established. So our recommendation then is to adopt Resolution number 18517, resolving to adopt the annual appropriations for Clermont County for fiscal year 2018, pursuant to and in compliance with Section 5705.38 of the revised code. This resolution also establishes the legal level of control for 2018 annual appropriations, which is the same as what we had established for 2017, and that is in compliance with the Ohio Administrative Code, Section 117502.
Okay. Can we get a motion for Resolution 185-17 regarding our annual appropriations for fiscal year 2018 as referenced in item 27 with the changes just made?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're
Thank
off
you.
and running.
Mary, Suki, thank you.
And you didn't get any information yet on the other?
Not yet.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
We will work on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
That was,
On the 4-H.
on the 4-H.
On the 4-H.
okay.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. And at this point, there are no more add-ons, so
Sir.
we'll,
We'll have to do these? Done?
we've done that. There was two, we picked one of the two. And at the next step, we've got public participation, and we have no public here today. So I guess, there we go. And we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes. Thank you for coming, and see you next Wednesday?
Yes.
Next Wednesday.